What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. Welcome to the Thomas Mott Show on a Saturday. The NFL Draft is officially over, and the Eagles made 7 picks and 1 big trade for DeAndre Swift. Let's go through each one of them, give you my reaction, full recap, and see just how well Howie Roseman did as come on, you guys already know. Thumbs up for just an incredible overall draft and covering it the entire weekend. This is the full draft class from 2023. We'll wait to see undrafted free agents in a future video, but here's where we go. We start, of course, with Jalen Carter there at number 9. There's not a lot to say about Jalen Carter that's not already been said. He's probably the best defensive player in this draft. Now, time will tell. You can say that very easily, but time will tell just how great he is. But there are comparisons to Warren Sapp, which is kind of a big deal. There are a lot of good defensive tackles that come out every single year. He's considered one of the best in recent history. The only reason he was even close to falling to Philadelphia at number 9 is due to the off-the-field concerns. But Howie Roseman and the entire Eagles front office did an incredible amount of due diligence. I mean, it's like, a CIA agency investigation into these guys is what they do for every single high-level, especially first-round draft picks that exist every single year in the NFL draft. And they feel very confident in not only Carter, they feel confident in him becoming a pro, and they feel confident in the people inside the Eagles organization from the top down to Howie Roseman himself, Jeffrey Lurie, down to the coaching staff, down to defensive line coaches, assistants, and of course his teammates. Carter has every single opportunity to succeed, and if he does, you're talking about one of the greats hopefully coming to Philadelphia. I mean, Aaron Donald's name is thrown around as well, and it's early. Everyone's going to do a show today about their team's draft picks and how great they are. We won't know if these guys are good or not, but if you had to pick one you thought was going to be good, Carter definitely goes ahead and fits the bill. Next is Nolan Smith. Now, Nolan Smith is very interesting because he's undersized, and so you think, well, he's a little bit too small. The Von Miller comparisons are out there, but he's a little smaller than Von Miller, and the speed is what got him into the first round. He wasn't supposed to be a first-round draft pick, coming off of a torn pectoral muscle this past season, didn't play in the national championship game, and yet Philadelphia just saw him fall to them at 30 in a very bizarre way and said, you know what, we have Hassan Reddick. Here's the player comp of Nolan Smith. Let's see if we can have him come in and dominate off the edge, similar to what Micah Parsons did. Now, Parsons, again, thicker than Nolan Smith, but Nolan Smith ran an incredibly fast 40 time at the NFL Combine, threw up a bunch of really good bench press reps. He had an incredible long jump, incredible high jump. All the measurables are there, and the Eagles see him as a project, but with a small p, if I could say that. He's not a big-time project like some of these later-on draft picks. He's a guy who's going to get snaps this year, but it's not going to be consistent on this defense. It'll be 10 snaps, 15 snaps, 20 snaps. He will earn his reps because they have Hassan Reddick. You don't want to replace Hassan Reddick, but the expectation is long-term, Nolan Smith becomes the next Hassan Reddick, and, of course, time will tell. But they did spend both of their draft picks. Both of those are A-plus picks, in my opinion, and both of them can have an instant impact despite the probably limited reps that Nolan Smith will be on versus Carter, who I think is going to get a lot of reps, especially early on in his career. Now you get to the third round range, and they had 2 third-round draft picks traded out of the second round, but essentially it's a third or a second and a third because based on overall ranking. But Tyler Steen, very interesting offensive lineman from Alabama. I think he makes a lot of sense for Philadelphia in a number of ways. One, versatile. That's one of the key words you see whenever you read up on Tyler Steen. Now, he's massive as well. I mean, he's a really, really big physical human being, very similar to Landon Dickerson, but he adds some competition to the offensive line at the guard spot, but also adds some assurances at the depth spot or the left tackle spot in terms of depth. Those are the 2 things they wanted to do in terms of offensive linemen. They have decent backups overall right now in Philadelphia, but they wanted somebody, if week 12, Jordan Mailata goes down, heaven forbid, knock on wood, you can bring somebody in who will at least be competent and competitive at the spot. I think the growth here under Stoutland University is really, really interesting. He's not going to do much early on. I think Juergen still wins that battle, despite what people tell me in the comments section, but I think Tyler Steen is set up to have a very successful career. The hardest person to gauge in this entire draft class is Sidney Brown. I don't know what to make of Sidney Brown, because he's not somebody that was high on my draft list, but a lot of other people had him as, 4th-round pick, maybe a 5th-round draft pick. Here's what we know. He's athletic and physical. He's very fast. He makes some pretty good tackles in the box, and he's going to be right there in the competitive place for the safety spot in the National Football League on Philadelphia's roster. Now, the problem is you see some people compare him to Brian Dawkins, which seems a little bit far-fetched early. It's not like Jalen Carter to Warren Sapp. It's a little more believable. But here's a guy who could at least come in and be competitive. He will for sure contribute on special teams. I doubt he starts over Wallace and Reed Blankenship, Edmonds and Reed Blankenship, but he does add, again, some competitiveness to guys like Justin Reed and Kayvon Wallace who are going to be trying to win out those safety battles. This is a project player, very different from Tyler Steen, in my opinion. I just don't know what to make of him. I mean, you read comments that he's not very good in coverage. You read comments that he misses tackles. You read comments that he's pretty good against tight ends in coverage. It's just the slot receivers that are bad. It's hard to gauge. He's the one that I can't put my finger on in terms of this draft class, but the Eagles saw something in him. Him and Steen both did not go to Philadelphia for official visits. They drafted him without essentially meeting with them. So we'll see. It's very much scouting on these two, and the time will tell. Very interesting to watch what they do at training camp. I do love Kelee Ringo. In my opinion, you would take Kelee Ringo over Sidney Brown, but Kelee Ringo fell due to the fact that he's not fantastic in coverage. Now, he's big, he's physical. We talked about that in the show earlier today. 6'2". He has the exact frame you want in a cornerback. Maybe he can play some safety. Maybe you can put him in the slot against some bigger tight ends. There are options here. But the good news for Ringo is he has no real chance to start early and no need to start early. You have Zach McPherson and Greedy Williams as cornerbacks 2 and 3. So he's cornerback 5 right now. His job is to go in a training camp and learn. I mean, literally, welcome to your master's class. Learn how to play cornerback in the National Football League because he has some games, especially that National Championship game semifinal against elite receivers and JSN and Marvin Harrison Jr., where he didn't look too good. And that's why I didn't have him in the first round grade. I didn't think second round made a lot of sense. Third round did, but they got him in the fourth round, and that to me makes a lot of sense. Now, he's 20 years old. He's a baby. Remember when you were 20 years old? I think you could play cornerback in the National Football League, so time is on his side. I think it's a really, really good move by the Philadelphia Eagles. And then you get into the later round draft picks, the final two, who, listen, they're battling for roster spots. Tanner McKee, you knew they would take a quarterback. He's very interesting. You got to build the quarterback factory, right? He's 6'8", I believe. Massive quarterback out of Stanford. Now, he's not going to beat out Marcus Mariota because Mariota was taken, or signed, that's the word, by Philadelphia. Specifically for the idea that he can back up Jalen Hurts if you're in a bind where Hurts misses a couple games like Gardner Minshew did this past season. And, of course, Marcus Mariota is very comfortable in the zone read offense. It's going to be very similar to what Jalen Hurts can do, just at a lower level. We know that. Not as good of a passer. But McKee is basically going in there to back up Ian Book, or at least to compete with Ian Book for that quarterback number 3 spot. That's your real camp battle to watch, at least on the offensive side of the football, not named running back. I mean, you have two quarterbacks who they flashed, but they've not flashed enough to be really high round draft picks. You would have loved Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He was taken earlier by the Cleveland Browns, but McKee is obviously a QB3 potential, and if not, he'll be a practice squad guy like a lot of quarterbacks are that come out of college football. Final pick of the draft for the Eagles at 249 was Moro Ojomo. He's a defensive tackle, a little bit undersized there, but has the longer arms, so you can kind of assume he could play a little bit outside, depending on what kind of defense Philadelphia wants to run under Sean Desai. I think he can be in the defensive line rotation, but they have a lot of defensive linemen right now. So, again, practice squad guy for sure, but you get drafted, your job is to get in there, especially in a 7th round, learn, develop, and hopefully be rotational by year 3 in your career overall. Now, we do have to mention DeAndre Swift, not pictured on your screen. That basically is another draft pick. The running backs went off a little too early for Philadelphia's liking, Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, and even some of the guys in the 2nd round, like A-Shane from Texas A&M or the UCLA running back Chabernet, if you want to say his last name. And so the Swift trade makes sense. 2025, which is nuts, 2 years from now, 4th round draft pick, and so you basically give away nothing. He's in the final year of his deal, making about $1 million. It's as good as it gets. Did a full show on it. Be sure to go ahead and check that one out. In the end, this is a great draft class. Now, you can say that every single year because every draft class looks good hours after the draft officially concludes. However, it does feel like this one has some serious boom potential for a football team that already has a Super Bowl caliber roster, hardly lost anybody this offseason, and seemingly just got rich. It's the rich becoming richer for the Philadelphia Eagles. And listen, this is going to set expectations even higher. The Eagles' expectations are, at minimum, win the division and win a playoff game this year. I think it could be a little higher now with what we see, especially if Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and maybe one other draft pick, whether it's Steen or somebody else, Sidney Brown, actually performs well their rookie year. But the expectation for anybody not taken in the 1st round is really not starter right away. It's starter by year 2 or year 3. So overall, how do you not give it an A grade? It was an A grade for the past couple of days. Give me your thoughts on how the Eagles did in this draft class. I'm going to, of course, cover the undrafted free agents that they're going to sign. Some of them you might know, some of them you might not, but there's always a chance. Think Boston Scott, undrafted free agent. Greg Ward back in the day, still on the team, but undrafted free agent. There's potential there, so I'll have a show on that. So subscribe. I appreciate getting me to 11,000. And if you guys want to pick up the last 5 green Philly hats, you see one behind me, they're running out quick. Get your pre-orders in right now. I'm Thomas Mott. A lot of videos this week, but it's been fun. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.